go goofy. Oh, it's actually gonna work. Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Let's let it load over there to make sure. Done. Redirecting the Facebook Live page. What's up, Kyle? How's it going, dude?
What's going on, my man? Good to see you. Good to hear.
I know, it's so exciting. We haven't seen each other since like right after high school, and I don't know if you remember this, but we used to be in a band together.
Yeah. See how that turned out.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the band for about 4 days, and I remember so clearly like being nervous about singing around you and Shane Sad, and then I turned around, faced the wall, and sang, and I was like, yeah, it turns out I'm not a singer. And I was like, that's it, that I'm good. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's the last time I ever tried to do anything like that.
Now you're a real estate agent, and it seems like you chose the right path. It wasn't music, it's been working out pretty well.
Definitely. But hey, I'm gonna hop right into it. For the viewers who are watching, and I know there's some of you who watch religiously, I'm not gonna be following the format that I used to do, 30 minutes ish. This is gonna be a little bit shorter. If you have more questions, Kyle has graciously agreed to being reached out to if you're interested, and I'll tag him in the video itself. But house hacking, do you mind defining it for us really quick?
House hacking, yes. Yeah, it's a newish term. It basically means you are hacking the way that you live. It's like a life hack, but it's a house hack. We've all heard that term. So basically, house hacking is where you are renting out a portion of your home or maybe another unit on your property and letting those people pay your mortgage so that you can live for free.
Beautifully said. I love that. Okay, I won't add anything to that because I think it was perfect. Okay, right off the bat, where did you buy your home?
I bought my home in Tempe, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix.
Cool. And how much what was the purchase price? What did you pay for it?
Purchase price was $325.
$325. Right on. Closing costs.
Closing costs were a little on the higher end. I want to say they were around five to $6 grand.
$5 to $6 grand. And do you remember how much you put down, like as your down payment?
I put down, because this was a primary residence, I was able to put 5% down. So with closing costs, down payment, everything, I remember the number was about $22,000 cash out of pocket to move into that house.
Cool. Yeah, something to like talk about with you guys is a lot of people think that 20% is the norm, and that largely was back in like the 80s and the 90s. But that's no longer the case. More often than not, I'm seeing buyers put down 3.5% to 10% down. This 20% number doesn't exist anymore. It's just, that's like $80,000 in California, guys. So if you're like wondering to yourself how you're ever going to afford a home, know that you do not need to come up with 20%, and there are programs out there to help you. How much was your mortgage, man?
My mortgage was right around $2,000 a month, and then when interest rates came down not too long after that, I refied and locked in, I think, a 3.6% interest rate that got my payment down to $1,750.
Yeah. So that's something that you guys can do as a homeowner. It's something that's privileged to you and not to renters. So for example, my sister, she actually got in with a 4.8 loan when she first bought a home, and she was paying close to like $1,900. There's a whole video that we talked about with her. And then she got refinanced, and that slammed down her payment from $1,800 to $1,100. Oh, technical difficulties. That's the woes of doing things live. You good?
I'm good.
All right, everything's all good. Okay. So do you mind giving us, like, please don't give us any specifics, but what were you cash flowing? Were you cash flow positive, or were you like, oh, cool, I'm living for free, but I'm not breaking much money? Well, please don't get any specifics, but what did it look like for you?
I was cash flow positive for sure, and I was definitely on the higher end. What I ended up doing is I would say I was house hacking on steroids.
Okay.
This isn't for everybody. This is by no means passive, but what I actually did was I put a portion of my house on Airbnb.
Okay.
And I was renting out, I was basically operating a portion of my house like a hotel,
Cool.
and tons more work, very management intensive, but with that came much higher revenue than I would have gotten from a traditional tenant who would be in there on a monthly or a yearly lease.
Cool. And then can you talk about a little bit about what the benefits other than cash flow are versus a long-term tenant versus a short-term tenant?
Yeah, so when you have a short-term tenant, you know, that just the amount that adds up over time is crazy. For example, you know, a house that would normally be rented for $2,000 a month, if you put that on Airbnb, sometimes that same house people will rent for $200 a night. You know, I think most of us have probably tried to rent a house on Airbnb for a family vacation or whatnot. They're expensive,
Yeah.
really expensive, a couple $100 a night. So you look at a 5-bedroom house, 4-bedroom house, whatever, you could be paying $200 a month. Well, if that owner rents it out every single night for the whole month, that's $6,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to a long-term tenant, maybe the market rent for that same house would be 2,000, 2,500. So due to the short-term nature of it, the revenue over a period of time is significantly larger, but it comes with that very management intensive model where you have to do a lot more work.
Yeah. Yeah, pros and cons for sure. And I've also heard some pretty great things. People who do VRBO, Airbnb sort of stuff, like love it because they're also like there's a review system, you know? So instead of like, oh, this tenant, I hope they're good. I do a background. When Airbnb, hosts have reviewed guests and guests have reviewed you. So there's a little bit of mutual trust built in there. Was that something that helped you make that decision versus a longer term rental?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest driving factor was the cash flow. I mean, it was I could have rented out individual rooms in this house, but it wouldn't have came even close. My
Mhm.
house was very close to Arizona State University, so I could have done that and got student rentals. That's one popular way to house hack. But just when you looked at the numbers, it just made so much more sense, and every ounce of labor was worth it for me.
Right on. Good, good, good. Okay, so how did you get into real estate? What was the deciding factor for you? Did you read a book? Did you hear a podcast? Or you're like, you know what? Like, I don't know. What was it for you?
I accidentally got into real estate. I actually got into real estate through Airbnb, through the short-term rental section, whatever you want to call it, of real estate. I had an apartment when I first moved to Arizona, didn't like it, and I had several months left on the lease. And I said, I got to get out of this place, but I don't want to break my lease. And a friend said, hey, why don't you just put it on Airbnb? You know, a lot of people put their apartments, their condos, their houses on Airbnb and just move out. And I said, okay, well, let's give that a shot. And I was just absolutely shocked at the number of rentals that I got immediately off the bat for Airbnb. And that kind of made me realize, well, wait a minute, people will pay a lot of money for housing. That's the number one expense for most Americans, probably most people in the world.
Yeah.
And I kind of got this idea in my head that where I started to think, wait a minute, all of the money is in real estate. If I want successful real estate, if you look at some of the most successful people in the entire world, that's where the money's at. That's where they've made their fortunes. And this little apartment in Tempe, Arizona was kind of the just this random fluke of an event that made me realize that fact.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You didn't even own a house and you were like you were making money off of that apartment. That's pretty rad. But yeah, you're 100% right. There's always that saying, how's it go, where it's like not every rich person in the world made it through real estate, but 100% of rich people own real estate, or something like that. And
Absolutely.
it's really, really true. So what sort of advice would you give to yourself like 5 years ago?
Oh man, I would have said just start educating myself. There is a whole world out there of knowledge. You don't need to go and get a 4-year degree in real estate at some university. You go plug in a podcast, you watch a YouTube video, you order and read a book. you can just soak up so much knowledge.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have gotten into it sooner. I still, I would think I'm relatively young to have gotten into real estate, but man, if I would have started listening to podcasts, meeting people, talking to people like Greg, and listening to these types of things, I could have opened my mind to this world that I didn't even know existed back then.
Yeah.
And out there, there is so much material online, and I just wish I would have been exposed to it sooner, but no regrets.
No regrets. Hell yeah. Okay. So actually, guys, a main source of information that I use for real estate is actually Bigger Pockets. And I'll link that in the comments. They are an amazing community. They have 3 different podcasts right now, and they all cover different factors of real estate and or business. That it's free. Like it's like you literally can sign up and have an access to an amazing group of people and a lot of information. They're all about building each other up, which is pretty great. So let's just say someone is getting into real estate for the very first time. What's like a baby step? Like somebody's like, Kyle, like I don't know anything about this, but I like what you're saying. Can you give me like one thing that I can do that'll set me in the right course?
Wow, I just got a phone call. Can you still see me?
Yeah, I got you.
Great timing. Sorry. I would say that the baby step, well, first the education aspect of it. Go immerse yourself in all of the resources, the free resources that are available to you, and start learning about it. Just there's so many things geared towards beginners out there. I mean, I'm talking YouTube videos, podcasts, easy things like that. Educate yourself. That's the smallest, easiest baby step you can take. And if you want to actually start getting your feet wet and do something real estate related, it's a pretty well-known fact that house hacking is the easiest way to get your feet wet and to get started on real estate. And I can attest to that. You've got tons of advantages. Like Greg said, you don't have to put a lot of money down. When this is your primary residence, you can get away with, gosh, what type of first-time home buyer programs do they have there now? 3%, you said, I think, really low down payments.
Yeah, 3.5% to 10% is the norm. What I've seen most is 5%, which is what you put down. Just because people want to lower their monthly. And actually, I'm gonna hop in really quick. That's something to make super clear, guys. The less you put down at the top, you're paying more monthly. So that's accruing interest, and you're paying that. However, if you're house hacking and you're doing it correctly, it's actually your tenants that are paying that interest off for you. But anyways, that's a whole other aspect that we can get into. But sorry I interrupted. Go for it.
No, that's a really good point. You know, it's easy. I say easy lightly, but in the grand scheme of things, this is the easiest way to get into real estate. You find a house. Like for me, for example, I found a house with a great floor plan. It was a floor plan where I had my own entrance to the house. I never had to see these people. I was on the complete opposite end of the house. I had a contractor come and put some drywall up to separate my house into 2 separate units. Or go find a house maybe that has a garage conversion, or what they call an ADU. It's an additional dwelling unit, which is very popular in California right now.
Yeah.
Where you may have a detached structure behind the house, something like that. Find a house that will allow you to house hack. Get a great realtor. I had a really good realtor who was an investor and a house hacker himself.
Nice.
Somebody who's very knowledgeable, someone like Greg, who can guide you through that process with your goals in mind. Your realtor is going to be your best friend in this.
Damn straight, man.
You know, I'm right. I know it's music to your ears.
Yeah, ADUs are blowing up in California, and they are interesting because you can build. They're getting more and more complicated in a good way, in that the state's starting to finally recognize that there is a housing shortage and people can take advantage of the extra room in their backyard or even convert their garage. And so what we're starting to see are people taking advantage of that by building 2 ADUs. And depending on what city you're in, it depends on like how much square footage you're allowed to have, how much like of the utilities are actually shared, and so on and so forth. But I think the highest limit in Burbank for an ADU is 1,200 square feet. And there's a lot of apartments that are even 1,200 square feet. And if you can manage a way that you can find a contractor that works with you in a really good way and builds a 1200, square foot ADU and attach to that another 800 square foot ADU, which again, a lot of apartments aren't that size, you can be making a decent amount of money as long as you do it right and you run your numbers correctly. But did you want to add anything to that?
No, you're 100% right. And I would say that the easiest way to get into it would be just to get a plain old simple house and get some roommates. Find a house like the house that I got was a 5-bedroom, 3-bath. It had an addition on it with another bed and another bath. Lots of that in California, especially in the older tracts where people have added on over the years.
Yeah.
And that's the same way to do it. You get into a house as a first-time buyer with a low down payment. Maybe it's you and your girlfriend, boyfriend, whomever, husband, wife. The house hacking is probably geared more towards folks with no kids, single folks, I would say. But anybody could really do it.
Yeah.
If you have the right house and you're willing to share the house essentially with people, you got to look at it like those people are paying your mortgage for you and you are living for free.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else out there that can do that. That's like somebody handing you a check every month, which they're literally doing, saying, hey, I'm paying your house for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay anything to live. And that's just, there's nothing more powerful than that, in my opinion, when we're looking at building wealth.
Definitely. And there's something to be said that while they're paying your mortgage, you're actually accruing equity. And as we know, most of the states, 3% goes up. Your home value typically goes up about 3% every year. California's a little different, typically goes around 5 to 6%, just because it's California. But again, somebody else is paying that for you. You're making money off of the equity. And so when you decide to refinance, you can pull that money out and do this all over again. But that gets a lot more that we're getting ahead of ourselves here. But what's next for you, man? Like you've done that. You did the short-term rental and the 5-bedroom, 3-bath house with a drywall up that gave you some privacy. What's next?
Well, I've moved out of that house actually a couple months ago. I no longer live there, and that house is now a full-on Airbnb. I rent the whole house out as an Airbnb. Another beautiful aspect of this is, while I'm living for free and people are paying my mortgage for me, I still had a full-time job. Good job, decent salary. I was able to take every paycheck that I made from that job and put it in the bank. So I'm saving money this whole time. And what I'm doing with that money is now I'm using that to go towards other investments. So actually, as of last week, I just closed on my 5th house out here in Phoenix. And that house is going to be a what we call a burr. That's a whole other topic. Maybe we'll have another live stream one day about that. But basically, what I'm getting at here is that very first house opened the door for me to real estate, and sky's the limit from here. I've been exposed to this incredible wealth building tool that all started from me having just the idea today, hey, why don't I just rent out the extra rooms in my house? And that just opened it all up. Yeah. So we'll see what's next. More houses. That's all I can say. More and more houses. And eventually, real estate has the power to make you financially independent to where you don't need a job anymore and you can survive off the cash flow that you get from your properties. And I think that's everybody's dream. But it's not a get rich quick scheme. It definitely takes time, and hopefully a few years down the line, that's where I'll be. So we'll see what happens.
So I do got to ask, because you're doing short-term rentals, I'm sure some people are going to be wondering, what does that look like during COVID times? Has it hit your business there, or is it kind of just been smooth sailing?
No, March and April were rough. When the panic really set in, when the pandemic started, a lot of people stopped traveling. But believe it or not, I had a slump in revenue those 2 months. But come May, June, things have been picking up pretty steady. And, the way that I look at it is, if you can get through COVID with the short-term rental, you can get through anything.
Yeah.
So I'm taking that as a lesson just to, build back stronger. And I think there's a bright future. One thing to keep in mind is here in Arizona, we're very, very friendly on the regulatory side. Not every state, city, county is going to allow you to house hack with short-term rental. But I would say I don't know if there is any city or town out there that would restrict you on just renting out your room to a friend, a colleague, or family member.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just renting out rooms in your house, that's different than basically operating a hotel in the neighborhood. So if you're thinking about going the short-term rental route, definitely do your research.
Yeah.
I definitely did mine. Make sure your insurance is in place to cover, because there's increased liability. It's a whole different ballgame, the short-term rentals, but the cash flow is definitely higher. But long-term rentals, you know, I don't think there'd be much of an issue with that in most places.
Amazing. Yeah. For example, guys, Glendale and Burbank have a 180-day limit for Airbnb, but no limit on longer term rentals. But okay, so last question. You graciously offered if people had any questions, they could reach out. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, add me on Facebook. Gosh, I don't know what's the best way to find people now. There's probably a million Kyle Moores, but
Facebook is fine.
I'll my contact info.
Yeah, that's right. You can reach out to me and I can give that contact information up. But I'll also tag you in the comments so that people literally, you want to contact him? There it is.
Absolutely, I'm happy to help. I've helped two of my really good friends out here get into house hacking the same way I did, and it's really changed their lives. From a financial perspective, it's, you know, you're that's one of the biggest stressors in life. And you know, when you can actually have that peace of mind knowing that some of your bills are being paid for by someone else, it's incredible the impact that can. So I love helping people with that. I'm happy to help anybody who wants to reach out. You can reach Instagram. It's More Kyle, MoreKyle. Reach out to me there wherever you want, and I'm so happy to help anybody who wants it.
Amazing, man. Thank you for that. And then if you guys do end up going out of state or wherever it is, reach out to me. I'll help you find a realtor out there. And that way, you know that you got yourself a good realtor and somebody who's vetted and you're not just throwing darts at a dartboard. But that's it, man. You got any closing arguments? Any closing statements you want to make?
Closing statement: real estate is the greatest wealth building tool that there is. Go talk to Greg. Learn about it, immerse yourself in knowledge, and you will be amazed at the wealth building power that real estate can have for you. It'll change your life.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate you. I'll tag you in the comments. I'll drop a bunch of links. If you have any questions, let us know, guys. Peace. Good night, brother.
See ya.